You wouldn't believe how sad it is to sit there and see the news report that comes around and it's so far from the truth.
We realize that.
They said that I left the car, I ran away. I was in the truck with Mr. Jackson trying to help him just to survive. I was doing everything I can.
Were you aware of any other medications he was taking?
I was not aware of any other medications that he was taking, but I heard that he was seeing a Dr. Klein 3 times a week in Beverly Hills. And he never disclosed that to me.
Who found the lorazepam and diazepam bottles that you took a photograph of?
I'm not sure, but I believe it's Detective Sanchez.
Well, you testified last week that you actually set those bottles up for photography purposes, right?
Yes.
Who did you take the bottles from to do that?
2.5 years ago. I have no idea.
Dr. Murray told Alvarez to call 911. He told you that.
Yes.
But Alvarez never did tell you about performing CPR, about him performing CPR, right?
Not at that time, no.
He never did tell you that Dr. Murray asked him to put vials or bags away.
That's correct.
You would agree with me that the press was overwhelming.
Say the least, yes.
Say the least. You were probably harassed more than you've ever been in your career. Would that be fair to say?
Be very fair, yes.
Were you able to ascertain and make a determination as to the manner of death regarding Michael Jackson?
Yes.
And what was the manner of death?
The manner was homicide. For example, Dr. Murray's statement to the police indicated that the propofol and other medications were administered by another person.
So you're commenting that Dr. Murray admitted to administering the benzodiazepines and the propofol?
That's correct.
Okay. What was the cause of death, Dr. Rogers?
The cause was acute propofol intoxication, and the contributing condition was benzodiazepine effect.
How many pills are in that bottle?
There are 9.5 pills.
And that was an original prescription of 30?
Yes.
And we also had another empty bottle that was found in the somewhere in the Mr. Jackson's bathroom. You understand therapeutic dosing for lorazepam, don't you?
Approximately, yes.
You felt that the lorazepam, well, you felt that benzodiazepines had a part in the cause of death, don't you?
Yes.
Had you ever heard of any doctor using propofol in their practice of medicine to treat insomnia?
I've never heard of it.
Is the use of propofol as part of a doctor's medical practice to treat insomnia gross negligence?
Yes.
The second deviation you found was what?
A second deviation is that putting propofol, giving someone propofol in someone's home unmonitored without the proper equipment, medical personnel or backup was also an extreme deviation from the standard of care. When he approached Mr. Jackson at this point, what he should have done was first called 911, run over, try to arouse Mr. Jackson. So instead of just calling 911, instead of immediately giving flumazenil, instead of using the bag mask to get oxygen in him, he started doing chest compressions, which is counterproductive on a heart that's already working. So the fact that he was doing that was an extreme deviation from standard of care. He gave 25 milligrams of propofol and then started him on a drip.
No, it doesn't say he started him on a drip, does it?
I think it does, yes.
Well, it doesn't.
It doesn't?
No.
Can I look at...
Sure.
I look at page 34, sir, and it says it is both given, he's describing it to Detective Smith. This is not of the night, this is during the interview, and he says, it is given both in IV form, and usually most patients are given a certain amount of drug based on their body weight, and then they can be started on an infusion slow enough to keep the levels of plasma up so that they can sleep. So they're insinuating that usually a bolus and called a dose and a infusion is usually given. It is something that has continually introduced to him as a drip, or is this something just a small injection? And Dr. Murray says you do a small injection to help him sleep, and then you try to drip slowly. And so I think based on his own testimony, Mr. Flanagan, Mr. Jackson was on a drip. First of all, it makes logical sense to call 911. He doesn't have any of the appropriate equipment, any help. He needs to get help. You call 911 first.
Okay.
Because he obviously, waiting didn't work.
Have you ever seen, in your personal experience, a doctor administering propofol to someone at home in the setting we've been describing?
No, this was the first time I've heard of that.
And when you conclude, as you have on these and as we go forward, that it's an extreme departure, you're concluding that you would never expect to see that from a reasonable, prudent doctor.
That's correct.
Would you go pick up the phone and call 911, or would you assign that to maybe someone else?
I think if there is somebody around, the first rule is to have that person call them. But if you are alone and there is nobody and you don't have the resources, you have to call 911 yourself right away.
What if someone's in the next room?
You can call out for that person, and if there is an immediate response, that would seem reasonable.
You would call 911 immediately because you would know you were lacking the emergency equipment and everything that was necessary to save the individual's life, correct?
That's absolutely correct.
And that not only is that a moral and professional obligation, it's basic common sense, isn't it?
That's absolutely right. I mean, that is putting your patient first.
Who makes the final decision when deciding what is appropriate care, the patient or the doctor?
It's the doctor. I mean, again, your patient's welfare is first and foremost.
Could a doctor be grossly negligent and the patient survive? Do you remember that?
Right.
Okay. A doctor could be grossly negligent on a certain factor, and God willing, a patient could survive, correct?
That's right.
Okay. In this case, I want to talk about this case. Conrad Murray was grossly negligent in multiple instances, and that gross negligence directly caused the death of Michael Jackson, correct?
Absolutely did.